I do kind of want to highlight what I've decided is a pseudo motto, okay, that I'm pushing for. We can succeed together. Okay? That means we all work together to learn what's going on with the content. Don't sit off in your own little bubble by yourself to process the content. Okay? You can still do that. In a class this small, that's going to be a bit questionable, okay? But you can still probably manage that. The issue for why I don't want you drifting off all by yourself is kind of twofold. One, if you drift off by yourself, it's very hard to get you the help you need to be successful in the class. Okay? And then number two, the other option is that you're that good, which is great. I want you to help everybody else. Don't leave it to just me to kind of help build that content and that knowledge base going forwards. Make sense? Okay. Yeah, and then at the bottom, practice, practice, practice. And I'm going to progressively be adding more and more kind of practice things into it. Our meeting times, you all made it here or are listening at home after the fact. Tuesday, Thursday, 12 to 1 here, and then we'll all walk over to the lab or drive over to the lab, however you want to get over there on Tuesdays. Thursday, there's no lab. Contact hours, I do kind of want to point this out as far as time commitment, and then the potentially more relevant one, the amount of time that you're supposed to be spending outside of class to be successful in a course. Okay. The general rule that I hear advising spit out from initial registration is you need 2 hours per credit hour of class. That messaging is very complicated at best. Usually the interpretation from that is, oh, all of my classes, I only need 2 hours extra out of class to prepare for the class. No, it's 2 hours per credit hour. This is a 3 credit hour class, which means what advising is telling you is you need to be spending at least 6 hours outside of the class, not 2. Okay? The next added wrinkle to that is no science class, any STEM field that I have ever been a part of anywhere, and I have multiple different affiliations, okay, has ever said 2 hours per credit hour for a science class is appropriate. Universally, it's 3 to 4. Okay. We will try to kind of tamp down on that outside knowledge because we're looking at a fundamental course a little bit, but you should be planning for 3 to 4 hours per credit hour outside of class, which means 12 to 15 per week. Okay. That should be kind of your baseline planning. Your planning will fall apart. Planning always falls apart. Okay. But that's what you should be trying to schedule and plan to be successful in OChem. Kind of make sense? Okay. Next part, contact information. I go by Mike. Did I say I go by Mike? Okay, good. Sometimes I remember things. I go by Mike. My email is there. My office is in Agave 1373. And if you're wondering where Agave is on this campus, that's your first mistake. It's not on this campus. It's at the Pecos campus. Okay. Which is also pseudo-irrelevant because while it is at the Pecos campus, it's also behind a locked door, making it virtually impossible to get me in my office. Okay. Add to the fact that I'm now at Williams. I'm not near my office on Tuesdays or Thursdays at all because I'm here. Okay. That also doesn't work. Okay. So what I do kind of to supplement that or to prevent that issue is that I hold office hours in the tutoring center. Okay. So on Mondays and Wednesdays, I will be at Pecos and the second floor of the library, tutoring center 228. Okay. And you can come ask questions there from 10 to 11. Okay. Tuesdays and Thursdays, since I'm at Williams, I will be at the Williams Tutoring Center from 9 to 10:20. You're like, but I don't get to campus till 10:30. Sorry, is about all I can say. I've got a class right before. I've got a class starting at 10:30, running right up into this. Okay, so that's my availability. And then after this on Tuesdays, we've got lab, so I don't have time there to meet either. Thursday, that's a possibility. Okay, so I will float that out there that we may very well see Thursday afternoon hours pop up, okay, to get help. Make sense? Because I'm bouncing back and forth between campuses, I will also try to include a virtual option. Virtual hours are rarely attended, and so rarely attended that I've gotten lazy and not activated it. So if you think you're going to need virtual hours, that's okay. Just let me know. Send me an email as a reminder to be like, hey, make sure you turn that on. Okay? And I'll fire that up. Okay? I do pride myself in responding to emails. So send me an email with any questions, and I will try and respond as quickly and efficiently as possible. I do have to carry this around. Ideally, you send via your college Gmail account. Okay? Canvas, if you haven't learned it yet, is a horrible emailing system. And I am baffled by anybody that thinks it's great. I'm just very confused. You can still use it. I will still respond to it. Okay, but it slows my response time significantly, particularly because I check my email very frequently from my phone, and through Gmail, it's very easy to see what questions you have and go back and forth. When I answer through Canvas email, if you haven't experienced this before, you ask me 3 questions, you will usually get 3 response emails from me, particularly if I'm from my phone, because the instant I go to open up the app to respond, I can't see your questions anymore. So all I can do is try to remember what questions you asked to provide a response. Okay? So it's the big reason why I don't like Canvas email, and there's all sorts of other secondary issues with it too. Okay? So you can use it, just realize response time may slow, and you may get a kind of, depending on how many questions you ask, multiple email responses from me. Okay? If you use standard Gmail or even personal email accounts, I'll respond to personal email. I can't respond with grade information. Anything that confirms or denies your presence in the class, because that is federally protected. Okay? Kind of makes sense? Okay. Questions about any of that? Okay. Course description and competencies. I'm going to point out a couple things in this. What were the things that I thought was kind of interesting? One is number 6. List the principal uses for compounds commonly encountered for organic compounds. This is largely due to functional groups and uses. Students ask for this all the time. Every time I do it, I'm always wrong. Every time. That's because everybody has a different interest in what they want to see the chemicals doing. So I can go through and be like, oh, I think this chemical is great because look at how pretty it is. Look at the structure behind it. It's got a lot of structural things that are very interesting. Well, if you don't care about structure, it's not useful. Okay? I can point to the use in making silicon cells, okay? Solar cells. If you're not interested in solar cells, that's not useful. Okay? So what I've decided to do is spin this and leverage our technology. What's the most common technology buzzword or letters floating around in the ether in the last, 6 months? No ideas? We can play a game. I can go with a couple options. We can have one option, it's just 2 letters. The other option however many letters that is. 6. I'll accept either of those. There we go. AI, or what's the other one? chat-GPT. Ooh, I think I missed a letter. I need to add another line. Okay, so what we'll do is leverage or attempt to leverage the AI content. You'll just use a chatbot to effectively study something that you're interested in. Okay, that can be your career path. That can be a hobby. I really don't care. But explore what the AI can give you feedback about. And then what I want you to do is take one of our functional groups that we're going to study this semester and similarly study that a little bit, see what the AI spits back out about its uses, and then try to tie that back to your desires, okay, your career path or your hobbies. Okay? We'll then share that out with the class through a discussion board, and in that way we cover that competency in a way that's valid for you, not for me. Make sense? You gave me a little quizzical look, which makes me think you've got questions. No? Okay, just checking. So yeah, that's one I wanted to point out. And then the other thing that I would point out is actually the absence of something. Okay? One of the things that is absent from this competency is an explanation for how or why any of these things happen. The way the course is allegedly designed is, here's all these reactions, memorize them. No, that's what the competencies say to do. Okay? That is an extreme disservice because you're not going to use any of those reactions. At best, you're memorizing them for an hour, 75 minutes to regurgitate it on the exam and then walk away. Okay? So what we're going to spend some time to do is we will do that. We do have to kind of cover that. But we're going to be very selective about how much we're drilling into just here's a bunch of reactions and think more about how these things work and how they piece together. And we'll build out that how a little bit better because that'll give you fundamentals that you can now apply to other scenarios. Okay? Another question that I'll float out here, how many of you know what your next chemistry class is? Just curious. None? That's okay. None? So is that all transferring to U of A nursing?
Yep.
That's actually a new one to me, that ASU required this course. Everybody else? U of A?
U of A Gilbert.
Yeah, Gilbert.
ASU? Hey, that's interesting. You guys? ASU wants this? That's interesting. But you don't need biochem.
I do.
Okay, that's the one that I expected. I expected biochem, so I'm a little surprised. You didn't need biochem?
I do.
Oh, you do? Okay.
It satisfies like chem231 and 235, right?
Yeah. 231 and 235 are the ASU course numbers for this one. And then typically, you move into 260, or 360, sorry, at ASU, which is biochem. Okay. So, I've taught a bunch of students, directing them towards that biochem path.
Things about biochem.
And so I can help kind of set up some of the context, because that's one of the things that I fairly was comfortable. I thought everybody was going to have to go that route anyway. We will, when we talk about some of our chemicals that we're looking at, we'll look at them from the biochemical pathway standpoint to set up some of that content knowledge so that you know why it's appearing in biochem. And yeah, the potential horror stories you heard about biochem have to do largely with probably the pathway you took. chem130? Yeah. What you'll see in biochem for 360 is that they talk about a bunch of chemistry content that is really only addressed in general chemistry, Chem 151 and 152, which isn't part of the prereq to get into that class. So that's usually the hiccup that you deal with. But added benefit, you can memorize your way out of it. So there are ways to get around it. Materials. There's really only one material for this class that's required to purchase, and that's the active chemistry. It's an online homework system. That Friday resulted in me nearly flipping a desk because it kept deleting all of my work. That will get built. That's our primary system for trying to work through problems. What I'll be doing is selecting questions from that. All online homework systems are awful. With that said, why am I making you use them?
Practice.
Couldn't I just give you paper to practice?
Could.
So why make you use online?
Is it more convenient?
It's feedback. Okay. Convenience, based off of me flipping my desk, was not the factor in choosing it. Okay, but it's the feedback. You can do paper homework and turn that in. Great. When are you going to get feedback for that? At best, you're looking at a week turnaround. And that's insanely fast. Okay, considering all the prep of other things they've got to go through and do. You're looking at maybe 3 or 4 weeks. So you get feedback on a homework assignment after you take an exam relevant to it. That's not useful. Okay? So the paper homework is a way for you to build up the muscle memory and get through things, but you now don't know if you're doing it right or wrong. Online homework spits out a thing saying you're wrong. Okay? If we're lucky, that online homework also spits out a little bit of feedback saying this is why you're wrong, consider this. Okay? Not always. Not always. But we hope for it. Okay? And that's one of the things that Active swears by, is that they have an AI system that allows their software to provide better guided feedback for students to help them through problems. Okay? Because I'm recorded, that's all I'll say. Okay? So we'll work the best that we can with that. There is a 2-week grace period for paying for it. So there's a link within Canvas that I'll point out. If you haven't done it already, click that. You'll get enrolled in the active course. You should see 1 online homework available right now. I was working on the second. That was the flip desk moment. Okay? General rules for online homework, as I say, 3 attempts. You get 3 attempts on any individual homework question. Okay? That's not 3 attempts and then you fail. That's 3 attempts and then I get an email. Okay? One of the big problems with online homework systems is you have to format your answer into the way the online system wants. So it's not just content knowledge, it's also software knowledge. Okay? After 3 attempts, that's generally when we start flipping things. Right? Okay? I don't want you button mashing, because that's defeating the purpose of it. The purpose is to try and learn the content. If you're button mashing, you're just guessing at it, hopefully you're getting points. Okay? So that's why 3 attempts, you send me an email. I can look at what you've submitted and be like, that's a content issue, let's fix the content gap. Or, that's a software issue, stop fighting it, just let me give you the points and we'll move on. Okay? That's why I want 3. Okay? Everybody has a different line. 3 seems to be average. If you never want to be wrong, send me an email after 0 attempts. That's fine. Send me an email after 1 attempt. Find out where your frustration line is, and then reach out for help. Make sense? Next part, when the homework is due. I already forgot when I'm trying to consistently do it. I think it's probably Sunday night. Doing the homework Sunday night isn't the best strategy. You're not going to get help from me very quickly. Okay? So you should be doing that homework constantly. Every day, open it up, scroll through the questions, look at it, be like, ooh, I don't know how to do that, next. Ooh, I don't know how to do that, next. Okay, ooh, I still don't know how to do it. You make it through all of them, you go, okay, I didn't know how to do any of them. Wait for a lecture, see what the lecture gives you. If the lecture provides you that content to now go through and answer questions, answer those questions. Kind of make sense? So don't just drag your feet through it. Be preemptive. Next part, I am going to require a PlayPosit account. I keep wanting to set this down. The PlayPosit account is an online video screen, effectively. Okay, so what it does, or a video skin, is it'll take a video that I've already created and it'll put a skin over the front of it. That skin controls the video. So when you hit play in the skin, the video plays. But then the video will go, actually, answer a question. You can't continue to play the video. You have to answer the question first. The intent is to keep you engaged in the video. Right? That's why the question is there. Sometimes those questions are nonsense. Sometimes they're really easy questions. Sometimes they're stupidly challenging hard questions. The point is to keep you engaged and to be thinking about the content and just bringing you back. Okay? Which means don't stress necessarily about your score in the assignment. Stress more about I'm actively engaged and I'm trying to complete this. The average grade in PlayPosit, which by the way is not your grade in the class, usually hovers in the 30 to 50% range. Okay? Don't stress about that score. Ignore it. Focus more on the score that gets put into Canvas, and we'll talk about that when we get to the assignments. Okay? Next thing that I would highly encourage that I should have actually sent to the bookstore as a required item is a model kit. Because the class is relatively small, I'm pretty sure I can beg, borrow, steal enough model kits that we can have model kits in lab or in lecture and in lab when needed. Okay, you won't be able to take them home with you, but the whole point of the model kit is to allow you to wrap your brain around the three-dimensional structure. Okay? Because what we're going to be doing is manipulating three-dimensional structures. But where do we manipulate them? On your computer screen. Is your computer screen three-dimensional? Nope. Well, maybe on the paper. Paper's not three-dimensional either. All of the language that we use to discuss organic chemistry is translated through a two-dimensional system. So you need to be able to do that translation of two-dimensional to three-dimensional, do your manipulation, and then translate back to two-dimensional to output your answer or your thought process. Okay? The model kit helps to bridge that gap. Some people are really good at translating 2D to 3D. Some people are really awful. The model kit helps massively. That's why I would push it. There's tons of different model kits out there. All of them are varying prices and ranges and all sorts of other fun stuff like that. I recommend the Darling model because I think it's one of the cheapest ones. But it's your choice. Okay? The Tutoring Center also has 2 to 3 each of the different styles of model kits. So you could go to the Tutoring Center and use the model kits there. Okay? That said, I think during class I'm going to steal them from the Tutoring Center. Okay? The next one, Pushing Electrons, is really an optional book. It was one that was recommended to me when I took OChem the first time. And then I never used it, and it was at some point towards the end of my undergraduate coursework in OChem. I was like, what was this book? And I opened it up and started looking at it, and I'm like, damn, that would have been really useful. Like, that makes so much sense now. I understand why I'm doing those actions. So it can be very helpful at kind of an intro level to explain what's going on with it. It's a workbook, okay? So you can buy it used, but it's probably got stuff scribbled inside it. I have a used copy. It's got tons of stuff scribbled up inside it. Okay? I would highly encourage you to buy that just to work through it, but it should be purchased cheaply. Okay? I think the bookstore was trying to offer it at like $70, and I think that's stupid. Okay? Particularly for a workbook. Okay? And yeah, since it's just a workbook in practice, it doesn't matter the version, just find something. If you don't want to, that's fine too. Okay? Third-party learning tools are just a bunch of stuff that we use in the course. That's why it's there. AI, there's supposed to be a more in-depth thing about it, but we're going to use AI for an assignment anyway, so like, not a big deal. The rest of this is hopefully stuff we don't have to worry about. Dropout Detective is just something that Chandler Gilbert uses that I think doesn't do what it needs to do. Lockdown browser for online exams. Hopefully we will not have an online exam. I really hope not. OChem online is awful. It's just not. If you haven't done it already, we've got the description on how to set up your student email. Okay. Remember, I would prefer you use your student email to contact me because it's easier for me to respond. Tech requirements, using online stuff. Questions about materials or anything else covered in the syllabus? Nothing yet? Okay, let's get to actual assignments. Homework. We're going to have 2 primary categories for homework. We already kind of talked about the online homework, so I won't talk about that one as much. The paper problem solves, which it looks like I need to fix that 8, turn it to a 12. Okay, we'll make up half your grade. Okay, the paper problem solves. I can't provide feedback, okay, on whether you're right or wrong on a homework assignment. If you come explicitly to me being like, I tried to solve this question, is this right? Yes, I will absolutely work through a question with you. Okay, no doubt about it. But just giving me 20 questions and expecting me to provide feedback about each one about why you're right or wrong isn't going to work. So why do paper homework at all? Muscle memory. Okay, a lot of what we're doing tries to involve getting your brain to memorize content. Studies have shown time and time again, handwriting increases cognitive recall and recognition. Typing things into an online homework system may allow for feedback. It doesn't allow for your ability to cognitively hold that content. That's why I want you to do paper homework. Okay? Does that mean I'm going to tell you what questions to do? No. I don't care what questions you do. All I care is that you are doing questions. That's it. And you're writing it down. That's what I'm looking for. This is a challenging assignment for students to wrap their heads around. Okay? Because what I am doing is taking all control and giving it to you. Okay? So what questions are acceptable? Well, is it organic chemistry? If the question or the answer to that is yes, then yes, that is acceptable. Okay? Is that structure? Is that reactions? Is that intermolecular? Yes, all of that counts. What you need to pick are questions that are relevant to the content that we're looking at. I'll provide suggested places. We have the online homework. When you submit the online homework, that's organic chemistry. Are you writing that down? If you are, that's paper homework. You should be writing it down because you're trying to learn it better. Okay? So open up the online homework. Print out the questions. I'm not sure that you can do that. Write down the questions and solve them. Show those structures. Write down the process that you were using to solve a question. That's what I want to see in the paper homework. How does it get graded? I look at it and it'd be first pass. Do I see organic structures? Yes, good. Does it look like 20 questions? Yes, good. Are there some words? Yes, good, full points. The grading process behind it is insanely fast because I'm not looking for right or wrong. All I'm looking for is, are you trying to draw structures? Kind of, sort of? Okay. Those lots of kind of late policies within that, it is due every 2 weeks. They will alternate with the online homework. So for instance, the online homework, the first one I think is officially due this week just to get you kind of started and acclimated, used to the software. Next week will be the first paper solve. Okay, the following week will be online homework. The following week will be a paper solve. So they will alternate kind of back and forth like that. Okay? Questions about that one? Yes. Yes, use whatever technology you want. If you want to do it digitally, that's absolutely fine. With pseudo caveat, what you're doing right there with the iPad is pencil and paper. That's building the muscle memory. It's the action. Typing your answer isn't. We're not typing answers. We're writing answers. So if you want to use technology to write, that's okay. Don't use technology to type. Okay? Or take screenshots of the online active homework. That's also defeating the purpose. Okay? It's drawing it that's important. Make sense? Okay. Assessments. Assessments is a fancy word for play posits. Okay? I think there's 12. Okay, and somebody, I don't remember who, but somebody asked a question about it. They're like, dude, this video says chem235. I'm not taking chem235, I'm taking chem230. Chem230 surveys all of OChem, 235 and 236. I've got tons of 235 and 236 videos. In fact, I've got the entire course built out with online videos. So what I went through and did was look at those videos and went, that one addresses the fundamental aspect that is important. That gets pulled into 230. So you may see reference to 235 or 236. Those are inadvertent references. They're relevant, okay, but don't stress about what they're called per se in the video. The content was selected because the content is relevant to what you need to get through the class. Okay? That also said, you will also see a video that says chem130. Lewis structure, I quite frankly don't trust how you were taught, and so there's a Lewis structure video as well, okay, that was designed for Chem 130. There's a section of it that pushes beyond a little bit for OChem, okay? But the vast majority of that is designed for Chem 130. That video is also there for you, okay? And you'll see one for intermolecular forces, I think also is Chem 130, okay? OChem covers a lot of stuff. If we're looking at a survey course, it's going to survey all of that, okay? What did we say the average was on those?
On the play pause?
Yeah, 30 to 50%, that's pretty miserable, right? What is the point of those videos?
Attention.
Attention. I want you to be engaged in watching the video, not just watching the video, okay? And track that you watched the video. I mean, that's the other part of it. I just put a YouTube link. There's no evidence that you've watched it, okay? So this gives me evidence that you've watched it and potentially your engagement in it. So how do I grade that? Because the intent is that you watch it and you're engaged. How do I grade that you've watched it? I just look at it. It's going to record and say you watched all the way through. Easy. I can give points for that. Okay? And that's what I do. I go through, I download the grades, and it tells me the questions that were answered. If you answered every single question, I don't care what the answer is. If you answered the question, you made progress, right? You get 7 out of 10 points. Every single question is wrong. 7 out of 10 points. Okay? What about those last 3? And admittedly, it's 2 to 3. How do I pick out those? Well, now I want to test that engagement. Are you actually engaged in the video? That's probably got a strong correlation with, are you getting the questions right? Okay. Did I mention what kind of questions show up?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's simple questions of like, hey, this is simple where you're just listening. There's hard questions that are very, very challenging, okay, that are intended to plant a seed for something later on that I'm going to talk about. So I'm hoping that I can harken back to that question. Be like, remember when I asked you that really mean question? Here's where it's relevant. See how it ties back to that initial content. Right? There's some questions that are just like, are you paying attention? What's your favorite color? Okay, so completely off the wall questions. How do I decide which question to grade? Could go through and try and actually design it, but I do it a step kind of easier. I go through and I look at the average for that question for the whole class. There's 10 of you taking that question. If 80% of the class, so if 8 of you get that question right, that's probably one of those easy questions. I'm going to grade that one. Then the 2 people that got it wrong, why'd they get it wrong?
They probably weren't paying attention.
They weren't paying attention. They weren't engaged in the video, so they don't deserve the points. Okay, that's fine. You at least played the video and clicked through things randomly. That's okay. You deserve the vast majority of points because that's the intent. The last part is that engagement. Are you paying attention to it to get the rest of the points? Make sense? Hi. Probably your first time dealing with play pauser, right? Yeah. Oh, you've dealt with it before? Oh, okay. So do you remember loopholes? Okay. There are loopholes and secrets behind how you can backdoor almost all assignments, for the record. Okay? Particularly if they're online. There's always ways to get around, even online homework. How do you get around online homework?
You Google the answer.
You just Google the answer. So there's always a way to get around it. What's the intent of online homework?
That you don't Google the answer?
That's not the intent. It's practice. It's your learning. You're not going to learn the answer by just looking at the answer. That doesn't help you. Okay? So if you learn by practicing and trying to struggle through it, you've now learned. Googling it ends runs that. Do you get the points? Yes. So does that mean you should always try to learn the content? And you're like, the teacher's asking me this. Of course I always try to learn the content. The assignment is due Sunday night at 11:59. It is Sunday night at 10 p.m. Are you going to try and learn the content at that point? No. What are you going to try and do? Google it and get your points. Okay? Life will hit us and will always challenge things at different stages. You can end run the learning to maximize the points. I fully accept that, and welcoming it isn't quite the right word, okay? But it is accepted practice to do that. Realize you can't always end run the intent, like an exam. An exam shuts the door on you trying to cheat your way through it pretty quickly, okay? So not learning the content prevents you from succeeding in the exams. So you have to find the balance between those two spots. Kind of make sense? With play pause it, what's your out? Googling the answers to what's your favorite color probably isn't going to work very well. Okay? Particularly if it's a multiple choice. You're going to be like, you just listed yellow, blue, and green. My favorite color is purple. What the hell? I can't answer this. Okay? It's not meant to be a serious question. Okay? And in fact, when you click one of them is right. The other two were wrong. How can you do that about an opinion? That's because that's not the intent of the question. The intent of the question is just trying to draw you back to the video. Okay? So how can you end run it? All of these videos are in YouTube. So if I ask questions like, and the answer to this is, there's the quiz question. How the frick do I answer? The quiz question popped up before you said the answer. So I can't see the answer. Go to flipping YouTube video and hit play. Oh, the answer was A. There we go, done. A, I've got the answer. You've end run the content, but you've got the points. Make sense? Last one, or not last one. You can rewatch videos. You can rewatch them as many times as you want. I'm okay with that. The one thing that I kind of caution you on with play posits is I'm not sure you can control the speed at which you watch it, so rewatching that video to increase your question answers could be a huge time suck. So I generally don't recommend that.
I was able to change it.
I've tried to set it up so that you can. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't.
Yeah, like there's a little button.
Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. It depends when the update or when the video was made with respect to when play pause it controls it. The last one that I discovered yesterday when I asked this question to students that have had me before, guess what it tells you at the end of the quiz or the end of the video? All the correct answers. So you watch the video once, you've got all the correct answers. Then what do? You rewatch the video and you put in all the correct answers. Okay? End running the learning process to maximize your points. Use sparingly. Make sense? Okay. The AI writing assignment we kind of already talked about. Details are in Canvas. We'll be using some kind of AI chatbot to kind of study some of the functional groups. Exams, we've got 3 exams, Unit 1, 2, and 3. Unit 4 we won't explicitly test on, but it'll show up in the final. Okay? I don't like having a 4th exam the last week of class and then immediately followed by a final. I think that's obnoxious. Okay? Lots of people disagree with me, but I think that's obnoxious, so I don't do it. Okay? People like 4 exams because then what they can do is they can drop one and so we just keep the 3 highest exams. Okay, so that's a good benefit. I like that, but with only 3 exams, it's hard to drop one. So what I do instead is a resurrection final. Your final exam score will replace, assuming it's higher, will replace your lowest exam. Okay, so if an exam bites the dust, fine, fix it, and the final exam will replace it. Generally, the final exam, because it covers everything, can't get as deep and difficult, which means it's generally higher scores. So it almost always replaces. Okay. Extra credit, I do offer extra credit, but it has to be a continuous effort. Okay, so there's 3 ways to get extra credit. There's a text entry assignment within Canvas. You can visit the online tutoring center, or you can visit the tutoring center in person. Remember, where did I hold my office hours? In the tutoring center. So if you just come visit me in the tutoring center, you get extra credit for the class. Okay? Or get credit towards extra credit. It needs to be a consistent process. And by consistent, I just mean throughout the entire semester, not consecutive. Okay? For any 12 weeks of a possible 17, because we include finals week, okay, you just need to complete one of those 3 tasks. Okay, that's it. Okay, if you do so, I give you extra credit. The next part, extra credit, is sometimes not actually extra credit. It all depends on how the overarching grade for the class runs, and I find that most instructors don't pay attention to their own overall grading assignments for a class. And what they end up doing is saying, here's extra credit. But then if you decide to not do it, because it's extra credit, I don't want to do it, and your grade goes down. Well, why did that happen? Because of how points and grades and curves adjustments are made within the course, it counts against you if you don't do extra credit. This is strictly extra credit. I ignore it all the way up to the end of the semester. At the end of the semester, I assign letter grades. This is done. This is what I'm going to submit, saying your letter grade is to the school. Okay? At that point, I say, okay, is your grade within 2% of a higher grade? If it is, I go look at the extra credit. Okay? If the extra credit is completed, I add 2% to your grade. You've now cleared the letter grade, and you get the higher grade. If it isn't, you get the grades you earned based off of your standard points. Make sense? Okay. Hard to say with such a small class, but generally speaking, about 10 to 20% of the class is affected by extra credit. And I will say it is insanely depressing to go through and highlight, because usually what I do is, number one, I remove all names, so I remove the name bias associated with it, assign the letter grades, and then I highlight the grades. Then I go look at the names. So if I highlight 7 names, or 7 grades, and then I go look at the names, be like, did you complete the extra credit? And now I look through for the extra credit. Like, of those 7 people, 1 person did the extra credit. Like, that's bloody depressing. Okay? Because that's 7 people that should have gotten a higher grade that decided not to, by not doing the extra credit. Okay? The extra credit has a sneaky undercurrent behind it too. If you consistently dig into the material to do these kind of things, what happens to your understanding?
It gets deeper.
Yeah. And if your understanding gets deeper, what happens to your grade?
It goes higher.
It goes up. So the hope and promise behind this is that if you do the extra credit, you don't need the extra credit because your grade is now high enough that it doesn't matter. That's kind of the sneaky undercurrent hope. Grade breakdowns, I will say pretty much out of the gate that those will probably drop as cutoffs. They'll probably drop to 88, or what I would call the 8s. So 88 and above will likely be an A, 78 and above will likely be a B, so dropping it to the 8s. We'll start at the 10s, at those 0s, but it will probably drop by 2% on that. I will never increase those cutoffs though. I will only drop the cutoffs. Does that make sense? How much more of this do we have to do? When are we done? 15. Oh,
We
yeah.
ended
10 more minutes. Attendance. I don't take attendance in class. Okay? So if you need to miss class, that's okay. Missing an exam, it's an indirect attendance thing, that's a problem. Okay? But if you can't make it to lecture, you can't make it to lecture. One of the things that I am actively trying to do and remember to do is record lecture. So I will record the lecture and post it online. So if you miss class, you got sick, something like that, you can go back and you can rewatch the lecture on YouTube. Does that make sense? Remember that long pause? What just happened in the recording was a long pause, and like now Mike started talking again because you all weren't very loud to make it into the recording. Okay? Officially it's up there just because if you start ghosting the class and don't tell me, so you just disappear, that's potentially the issue. Okay? So if you stop showing up to exams but don't tell me you want to withdraw, I now have a reason that I can withdraw you. So that's what those numbers are there for. Student initiated withdrawal, don't ghost me, please. There's only 10 of you. Okay. So if you want to withdraw, that's okay. Let's have that conversation. Let's talk about it, because maybe I can help you figure out how to get through the class. Okay. So just ghosting and walking away from the class and not telling me that you want to withdraw is uncool. It also puts me in a tough spot of deciding F or W for you, which means very different things. Okay, because we only have 10 minutes, we'll kind of discuss it as the very different things. A W typically does not affect your GPA at all. It can have huge financial implications. So if you had a scholarship or financial aid, they can ask for the money back for the course if you get a W. Okay? A failing grade, an F, typically doesn't have the financial implications, because an F means you completed the course. You just completed it unsatisfactory, that word. Okay? The financial aid or scholarships may go through and say, we're not going to give you more because you're failing, but they won't ask for the money back typically. But now an F stays on your transcript, which is the big confusion with Fs. Go, oh, well, I can just replace the F. No. Right? And all advisors everywhere are screaming, yes, you can. No, you cannot. The F stays on your transcript. It does not disappear. An F is always there. You can replace the GPA calculation for the college. But if you're transferring to a nursing program, ASU, getting an advanced degree, they may go through and say, calculate your GPA. Don't tell me what the college tells you, because we can get that. Calculate it with these rules. And those rules may very well say you must count your Fs. Okay? So an F can have a GPA effect. Number one, both of them will stay on your transcript. Okay? But Fs don't disappear. They are always there. W's are the same thing, so why not always W? Financial aid. The other one, collecting W's, means you aren't completing things. So that could show a pattern of you're not someone who completes. If you're trying to transfer into a nursing program, they want you to complete. So they can say, look at our great nurses that have completed. Right? If you show a bunch of W's, they're like, well, you're not going to complete, so we won't accept you. Okay? Again, 1 or 2 for either of those categories is probably fine, but it starts to limit things. Conduct, let's be nice. Lab safety, we'll talk about later. Academic honesty and integrity is an extra section that's a little bit more strict, or adds a little bit of layer of strictness to the institutional policies on academic honesty and integrity. Pretty much says don't cheat. If you cheat, we will do all these things to you. Okay? And there's the institutional one, and the problem with the institutional one is it says we may, not will. So it creates all sorts of political problems. We already talked about withdrawing, all that fun stuff. Yay. I think we can say we're done with the syllabus. Yeah, I think we can say we're done with the syllabus. How are we feeling? Good? I don't believe you, because I found that incredibly boring. Oh. Any questions having gone through all that?
The suggested due dates on the play closet.
Oh, yes. So let's go ahead and open up our module. Student resources, you'll see that's blanket to all Canvas courses, so that shows up in every single Canvas course probably by Friday. I'm going to get rid of that. Week 0 introductions. This is all just kind of informational stuff. This active chemistry link right in the middle, that's how you get enrolled into active. Remember, there's a 2-week grace period. So click that, get enrolled now. You don't have to necessarily complete anything right away. You don't have to pay for it right away. But you should get enrolled and set up. Remember, there is a homework assignment. I tried to pick questions. Easy is not the right word, but they would introduce you to all of the features within the software. So they're more like, do this thing. You don't need to understand it, what it means, just do it. Okay? That's the intent of that assignment. Some of the questions are more content-based. The writing assignment, AI is there. Office hours, you will see in every single module because I want you to show up to office hours, so I will force you to constantly have to ignore it. Okay? Or you show up. Then we see a play posit for week 0. This is the intro into everything. So if we open it up, all play posits are formatted the same way. Right? They all have a due date associated with them, which for me is at the bottom. So this was due August 21st, which was yesterday. And you're like, well, dang, I didn't even have class. Don't stress about it. That was the suggested due date. Suggested because I want you thinking about the content kind of right away and moving into it. So Canvas has that built into it or as a due date. This is one of the reasons why I don't like Dropout Detective, because it breaks Dropout Detective. The assignment itself has all this text in it, and the most relevant thing that you have now addressed is this late policy. The assignment can be submitted late with no penalty up to the Monday of the exam. Right? Some people are like, with no penalty, doesn't that mean the due date is then? No, the due date is trying to get you to be learning the content when we're talking about it. Right? But if life hits you where you can't watch that right away, don't stress about the play posit. Okay? You've got a wiggle room area that can be done late. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay? This also means I will not grade this assignment until the week of the exam. Because remember, how did I grade it? Based off of your responses. If you haven't all completed it, I can't grade it because I don't have the feedback to provide my grading system. Okay? When you click the link, okay, either the link here, so that link should take you out to PlayPosit. It should force you to create an account. It will auto-enroll you in our class, the chem230 class. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that. Or it's embedded within it. Once you create an account, you can log in and you can watch it embedded within Canvas. PlayPosit holds all the scores. I go to PlayPosit, download everything out, and do all that. Kind of make sense? Due dates within PlayPosit. Utter BS. Okay? PlayPosit, as that third party, has due dates associated with it. There is a bug that is somehow associated with my account that prevents me from seeing the due date. So I can put in whatever due date I want, but then it doesn't tell me what that due date is. So I think yours are all set in PlayPosit to be the 21st because it was just the easiest date for me to do. For other classes, they're doing like 2020, okay? Because I couldn't figure out which ones to update or how to update them because it never actually showed me what the updated due date was. So ignore PlayPosit. Don't go to PlayPosit to do assignments. Go to Canvas to do assignments. Okay? Active due dates are kind of a little bit more strict. If you need more time, let me know. I'll flex on due dates. I just have to know. Okay? But active, when we go through and look at active, it's moving into week 1. When we click the active homework, what it's going to do is just say, go to our app. All the due date stuff is actually stored within active. Okay? So the online homework dates are official due dates. There's no nice late policy. If you need more time, let me know. I can put in more time. Right? And generally speaking, if any one person needs more time, the whole class gets it. Okay? Try to make it fair for everybody. Make sense? Okay. So the week 0 filled in with just kind of a bunch of informational stuff. We get that one assignment trying to get you started early. And then what you should see from there on out for all of our weeks is an overview page, what that week is trying to talk about as far as content, my kind of outlined goals of where we're going, office hours, lecture recordings. So the recording that I made just now, I will put a YouTube link in there. So any lecture recording from Unit 1 will be saved in that space. Okay? And then that thing will show up in every single module. Unit 1 supplemental reading. As I go out and find other places, okay, or you're like, oh, dude, this page talked about hybridization and I liked it a whole lot more than what you talked about. Maybe say it nicer. Okay? Give that information to me and I'll dump it into here so other people have access to that resource. Okay? Then we see the PlayPosit, Lecture X. They're all labeled as Lecture X. This one's on Lewis structure. That's the chem130 one. And then Models and Drawings. Models and Drawings is going to talk about some crazy stuff. I'll just be honest with you. Kind of way late Unit 4 material. Okay? The intent there isn't that you understand it per se, it's that you recognize what they're trying to do. The models and drawings is the art class. These are all the different ways we can draw things. You may not understand why, but they're the ways that we draw things. Okay? You'll then see active or paper homework, and then you'll see the extra credit at the very bottom. Kind of, sort of? Okay. So all weeks should follow that same pattern. We drop into the week 1 overview. I just want to point this out. We get what the unit is about, what's happening in week 1, and then the Google slide deck. Okay? So I've got all of my slides for this unit built into one slide deck, including all the play closet sides. Okay? So if you open that up, theoretically you have access. I'll check that in a second. You should see in the upper left-hand corner, play posit side. Why did it start with the play posit side? Because that was intro to OChem. Okay, so those are all the slides. If you want to take your own notes while you're watching play posit, there you go. You've got the slides. Okay, if you take a look, the very next thing doesn't have that because that's hopefully what we were talking about today instead of talking about freaking stupid syllabus. I hate talking about the syllabus. You couldn't tell. Okay, so this would be the content that we'll now be talking about on Thursday. We'll go, theoretically, the blank spaces are it's a break in content. That might be a day. That might just be, let's take a minute, let's do some practice, do some other things before we move on to the next topic. Kind of, sort of? Okay, with that, I got to say I'm done. We're going to just move to lab anyway, but yeah. All right, if you got questions, feel free to come up and ask. Otherwise, we'll pack up and we'll head to lab. Lab is a bit away.